are incredibly blessed to have Reverend Canon Cornelia Eaton with us today to continue the conversation she began with her sermon. And part of why Cornelia is here is because Peggy Parker and Kate Sonderegger and I went on what became a pilgrimage to Navajoland last year. And I hope, Peggy, that you get a chance to talk about your work, but we'll start with, you already did, all right. It's online, look it up. So you want to have this here?
Sure, or I could, I'll walk around if I need to. All right, well, thank you again. Thank you for having me. Reverend Cornelia Canon Eaton of Episcopal Church in Navajoland. I come from the four sacred mountains of Dene Bekea. We have our four sacred mountains is what is our homeland. So, and the story of my ancestors, of course, is has a long history, historical history, and along this historical history, when they were in 1868 or 1864, when the people were rounded up in the Canyon de Chelly and marched hundreds of miles to Fort Sumner near Texas, where they were encamped for almost 4 to 5 years until 1868, when a treaty was signed for them to go home to their four sacred mountains. And along the way, that whole time, the people continued to stay faithful to the prayers, to the prayers that they were given, and that was the Hojon, the Beauty Way prayer. That was that relationship prayer with God. And the stories are very similar to the Israel stories. You know how the Israel stayed faithful, and then they kind of. It just seemed like it was a winding road the whole time. But I do know that my ancestors have always been prayerful people, no matter what. And that prayerfulness, that spirituality is now in me. I carry it. And I don't know what to do with it except share it. And so I integrate both the hope is for the Episcopal Church in Navajoland to intertwine these sacred prayers together with the Christian prayers. And that's what makes our liturgy very, very rich, and it cares for our spiritual life. It cares for our holistic well-being. The holistic self is really important, because that's the realistic self. When we care for that, it also takes care and recognizes the cosmos in which we share together. And so stories are really important. When we share our stories, we remember. When we share our stories, there are prayers. And when we share our way of life, that's a giving back to a community that we want to be in relationship with, because that is the only way that we will heal and restore and reconcile. And I truly believe that's God's plan for us, is restoration. And that's a huge, big part of my ministry. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about the walking in the spiritual of Hojon, which is the Beauty Way. Let's see here. Where's it the other way? Okay. Here, the Dene, our main spirituality is this is a wedding basket, but it's also a coming of age basket. And it's also a Beauty Way basket. So it's a restoration basket. And this basket tells a story about how the sacred is always moving. We're in relationship with Creator. We live in the 4 directions. And the 4 directions is the birthing time and our youthful time and our midlife time and our elder time. We embody each of those every day. In the morning, like we just saw right now at baptism, that's a child time of faith that we're really moved into and receiving God's grace. You're my own forever. So then we go into the youth part of our lives, and that's like maybe the southern direction, where we're doing things, planning things, getting things done. And then in the evening, we become like midlife. We reflect what happened throughout the day, and it's, we receive them as gift. And then the elder is the northern direction. And the northern direction is about wisdom. I was reminded one time by an elder who said, when we sleep, we're actually absorbing the day, and we're resting what happened throughout the day, and so we're gaining some wisdom. And so when you sleep, you're gaining wisdom from the day. And so that wisdom that you receive, you use it the next day. And that takes a lot of practice too, because in the morning, the way that happens is you pray about it. The very first thing, the gifts that I had received, what do you need me to do about it today? And that's what guides us in that moment. Not yesterday. There's not anything we can do about yesterday, and can't do anything about 1 week from now, but just today. What is, what can I do with the gifts that I was given yesterday for today? Let's see. Okay. And so here's the 4 directions. That's our sacred mountains. The first one is Cisnagini, which is the color is white because it's in the eastern direction, and the reason why it's white is because I think you all have like white shells here on the coastal lands. We use white shells for our ceremonies, and we hold water in it. So that's the reason why we have white shell, and that's the color white. And then the southern direction, our sacred mountain is which is the turquoise of strength, and the color is blue because it's turquoise. As you can tell, I have turquoise on. Turquoise is our sacred stone. My parents always say, don't forget to be wearing your turquoise every day, even when you're out at play, or wear some turquoise, because this is how the holy people know you by name. And then yellow is the western mountain, Dog Oslid, which is twilight, abalone shell mountain. And so when the west coast is settling down, the sun is beginning to rest. You get that beautiful fine abalone color along the west coast, and that's where we find abalone shell. And abalone shell we use too, our ceremonies. We carry water in it also. And I had a friend, actually, her daughter, because my first abalone got damaged, and I was concerned about my abalone shell, and my friend, her daughter dove into the ocean and got me an abalone shell. And I was like, man, that is gift. I mean, to this day, I use the abalone shell for many things, like for blessing, for when we do our sacred liturgical services, when we're going to bless the altar, I use the abalone shell because that's a giving back. And then, of course, the Black Mountain is the Benetah, which is Big Sheep Mountain, and that's the mountain where I live near. So I have a really deep, strong relationship with Big Sheep Mountain, and I just have that connection there. So all these directions takes care of also remembering that we have to take care of our mental, emotional, physical, and our spiritual. So this is the Eastern Mountain. This is where they say that the white shell jewels are. As you can tell, on the top of the mountain, looks like all there is white shell jewels. Looks like a white shell. I mean, we never forget the East Coast. We don't ever forget the East Coast because we know this is where the dawn rises. And this is where hope happens for us, you know. So there's always that coming back. I'm always going to come back here because there's always a reason for me to be back here. It's like a coming home for me. So it's where the dawn light happens, hope is embodied, and it's the eastern doorway, just like this basket. This basket is the eastern doorway. This is the pathway, and this also represents the 4 directions. And this little material here in the middle is the umbilical button. This is our connection to our Earth Mother in all of our relations. So that's why this is there. And these are this little star area in the middle represents the 4 sacred mountains. The black area here is the mist clouds and the rain clouds, and being grateful for the rain and the snow. And then this red area is the rainbow. This is the Hojon, the beauty way. It's a promise that, you know, we're always going to have a relationship through the rainbow way. The black out here is the divine, the holy people, the helpers, if you will, and they also give us that direction, and so we have special connections with the divine in so many ways. And then this outer side is the ongoing universe. It never ends. This is always going to continue our way of life. So when I hold it this way, this is our Hogon. This is the universe. So when we go outside and it's a clear day, and maybe, if I remember, there's sometimes we can see stars here. If I remember. I've been in the woods for 3 years over at the Virginia Seminary, so sometimes it was really hard to see some stars. But anyhow, our Hogon that we share is this universe. So if you look out, it's a dome.
What is Hogon?
Hogon is our ceremonial home. It's where a lot of our elders, my grandmother and my grandfathers used to live in a Hogon before the modern day housing. Our Hogon is made out of mud and cedar logs. And so every year my dad and my uncles used to plaster the Hogon back with mud because of all the rain and the wind and everything, and each of the mud would be coming off. So every year was like they would plaster to keep our home. So that was always, I think, a wonderful way of getting in the mud. Mud clan it's my second clan. So, but that's our eastern sacred mountain. And then this is the dawn, the early morning sunrise. And this is when we offer corn pollen. Corn pollen is one of our sacred cornmeal that we offer in the early morning. And then we put it on our tongue, and then we put it on our head, and then we sprinkle it up towards from Earth Mother first, and then up to the sky, to Father Sky, and then we recognize everything that is around us. and that's our corn pollen. It's, again, gift, giving back, being grateful. So what that happened, when we acknowledge there the air, fire, water, earth, all living things, and they're our relatives, they're a part of us. Because I'm part of air, I have the windway in me. I have fire in me. That means it's always, my soul is always in movement. And but I also have to take care of the fire, because I have to remember how I respond to certain things, and that fire can really be sometimes destructive, like real fire. They tell us things, like they remind us about those kinds of things, and we have to really be careful about the inner fire that we carry too. And then of course there's earth. I'm related to earth, so when I put my hand down on soil out there, and I'm sure that I hope maybe one day you'll be able to put your hand on the soil, and the soil is the same color as us. We come from it. And it's the same thing as the biblical. I think there was a biblical story in the Old Testament where it says that God created humanity out of soil, and so God created humanity to have a relationship with the other beings. So the other beings were first, the birds and the water and all those things, and so God creates us so that we can have, so these beings, these other creation, can have a relationship with us, and we can have a relationship with the elements. And it's the same story that my ancestors, my grandmothers, my great-grandmothers told. And that spirituality that gives us, the people, hope. So then, of course, there's Turquoise Mountain. There's Turquoise Mountain, and that's our youth are planning where we gain knowledge. And this is my daughter. This is her coming of age. She was probably like 13, and the elders are helping her sew corn stalks together. Because what's going to happen with that big old corn stalk, I think it's like woven so largely like this. The men are outside digging a huge pit into the ground, maybe about that high. And they're going to lay that weaving, that corn stalk weaving into the ground. And then later you'll see that, I'll show you later here. This is San Francisco Peaks, Abalone Shell, family stories. It's time to gather. So now I'm sort of moving you back to what I was going to tell you about my daughter. See how we laid the corn stalk into the ground? And while that was happening, the other women and my daughter, they were in a large bucket. They were stirring the corn, and at the same time they're singing songs, the traditional songs. And then later the men come out and they pour the whole cornmeal into the ground. And then the firekeeper who begins the fire the day before keeps the fire going. The whole time just adding firewood to the fire to make sure it doesn't go out. And then so then the fire is down in that area, in that pit. It gets it really hot. And after that, it gets covered with some corn, with more corn husk, and then foil goes over it. And then we put like a canvas over, and then we cover it with dirt. And then we add firewood on top. And so when my daughter goes back into the ceremonial hogan, the night songs begin. We begin like around 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. And the medicine man, the beauty way chanter, will sing about creation all night long. Of course, we have breaks and all that. We get to go out, but we'll sing all night long till the dawn. And then my daughter was given a pouch of cornmeal when the dawn greeted us, and was instructed to go out and pray. And I remember when I was there with her, because my daughter wasn't able to speak Navajo, I had to speak for her. And so the medicine woman said, there's twins, there's two of you that are going to go through the ceremony. So I sort of went through the ceremony with her, and my daughter went out there and she was ready to sprinkle that fine cornmeal out there. And I said, the medicine woman chanter said for you to offer it and say these prayers. And she goes, Mom, I know. I've done this before. And I was not clear about what that was, but I think what she was saying, that she and I were embodied, that she remembered that I was a part of that, and she knew what to do. And I just stepped back, and I knew this was my little girl, who's now a woman. I had to let her be, and step back and grow, and let her grow into her womanhood. That's the beauty of what Hojong Birue is all about. That's the beauty of what we get invited into. And so that morning, we took out the cake. We took out we cut the cake up inside the ground, and she had to give it away. She's the one that had to give the cake away to all the people. She couldn't eat her own cake. That's the point. So she can always be generous. It wasn't about her. In a lot of ways, it was about her, but it was about her knowing how to live into generosity and hospitality. I think
is that for everybody coming of age, or just both boys and girls?
Yeah, there are ceremonies for both boys and girls. The boys get like what they call the arrowhead ceremony. So they go into like a warrior, like sweat lodge with the men. And they do the all night, kind of like a visioning prayer, just really getting them strengthened up into their manhood. You know, they become the caretakers and the protectors. So like warriors, you know, they have a huge responsibility. And the one thing they're always told is also in that sweat lodge is to take care of, to be very, very respectful to the matrilineal clan. You know? And so, because they are part of that, because we have both male and female, we both, and it's both embodied together, and we have to care and respect each of that. And then of course this is the mountain that I live nearby, and the reason why that I got this photo, those other ones were, I think I was driving. This one actually I was mountain biking, and I got to see kind of an up close picture of this. So this is Big Sheep Mountain. It's the place of wisdom of elders. It's where darkness enfolds us, where we get rest and we receive insight. And then this is of course me. I'm herding sheep. And those are the little lambs that grow up, and right now it's lambing season, so we have like 16 lambs right now. So me and the sheep herder, we were laughing one day, and we said, we got to get the maternity ward all cleaned up and everything. So each of the mama lamb and the baby lamb can be in the little space so they can get to know each other. And so we just don't let them go out there and start, being a family. We have to make sure that they are receiving each other. And then of course, there's always that embodying storm. I actually took this picture from my house. It's from my kitchen window. And when storms actually teach us a lot. mostly to be reverent, and that storms help us get through hope, and it's through experiences that we receive new life through storms.
That's a gorgeous picture. What I see in the sense is the Holy Spirit coming out in the center circle. You see it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think in beauty such like this, even though it looks kind of like haunting, but there's God is with us. God is always with us. So this is when it's raining really hard and thundering and storming, we were always told, sit down and just listen. Don't be running around, you know? Don't run around in the lightning. Sit down and listen. So we used to sit there and listen, and then it passes by. And then of course this is the evening sunset. This is at the sheep camp when it's evening. It looks like corn pollen. So, and this is our prayer. Jesus was, is, now, and forever in the sacredness of our story. Jesus is our unceasing prayer. Jesus is our heartbeat. Jesus is our healing. Jesus is our beauty. Jesus is our joy. And Jesus, our brother. In you we are holy again. We become holy again. And that's every day. And this is our hogan, our ceremonial hogan. As I walk, the universe is walking with me. In beauty it walks before me, in beauty it walks behind me. In beauty it walks below me, in beauty it walks above me. Beauty is on every side. As I walk in beauty. So that's my 30-minute. I think I did pretty well. So thank you. I mean, there is so much more to share. I mean, each of this has so many details, you know. It has a lot of details. And if we had an all-day retreat, we might have been able to hear the all-day details of this. So thank you very much. Yeah.